I've owned a Ruger Mini-14 for decades, and if there is one thing I've learned, it's that this rifle is the most misunderstood platform in American history. Behind that classic Woodstock charm and the ranch hand aesthetics, there is a side to this firearm that Ruger has spent years quietly managing. Once you peel back the layers of marketing, you start to see the Mini-14 not just as a tool, but as a mechanical survivor that refuses to go away. What's up, everyone? This is Tony from Gun 45, and today we are going on a deep dive into the strange, often hidden history of the Mini-14. We'll talk about the engineering secrets Ruger never put in the manual, the rare variants you've probably never heard of, and exactly why this rifle is still a top-tier choice for your safe in 2025. Before we lock and load, do me a huge favor. Smash those buttons below. Hit subscribe, ring the notification bell, and join the Gun 45 family. It's a small click for you, but it's the fuel that keeps this channel running and allows me to bring this level of deep ballistic research to your screen. Now, let's get into the meat of it. The first thing we need to clear up is a major myth. The Mini-14 was never intended to be just a shrunken M14. While the silhouettes are similar, the philosophy behind them is worlds apart. When Jim Sullivan, the engineering genius who helped bring the AR-15 to life, teamed up with Bill Ruger in the late 1960s, they weren't trying to win a government infantry contract. They wanted to build the ultimate civilian carbine. They wanted something that felt like a traditional rifle, looked neighbor-friendly, but ran with the relentless reliability of a tank. By the time the first models hit the market in 1973, the Mini-14 featured a short-stroke gas piston system, directly inspired by the legendary M1 Garand. It utilized a rotating bolt and a self-cleaning gas block that kept carbon fouling away from the receiver, a massive advantage over the direct impingement systems of the era. However, those early pencil barrel models had their quirks. If you got the barrel hot, your Zero would start walking like it had a mind of its own. The bolt hold open was a manual, internal affair that felt a bit rough around the edges. Ruger knew these issues existed, but instead of flashy Gen 2 marketing campaigns, they chose a path of silent evolution. Over the next 50 years, they incrementally added heavier barrels, improved heat shields, and better sighting systems, without ever making a fuss about it. They let the rifle's reputation for ruggedness do the talking. Mechanically, the Mini-14 is a masterpiece of simplified production. One of the most interesting aspects is the monolithic investment cast receiver. Bill Ruger was a pioneer in investment casting, which allowed the company to produce high-strength steel components at a fraction of the cost of traditional machining. Because the operating rod rides inside the stock rather than above the barrel like an AR, the recoil impulse is a linear, predictable thump rather than a snap. This design also allows for a completely solid wooden or synthetic stock without the need for a buffer tube sticking out the back. It's one of the few modern carbines that feels like it belongs in the 1940s while performing in the 21st century. But let's talk about the stuff you won't find in the standard Ruger history books, like the forbidden 222 Remington variant. I first encountered one of these at a specialized auction years ago, and I had to do a double take. Ruger produced a very limited run of Mini-14s chambered in 222 specifically for export. Why? Because in countries like Italy, France, and parts of Latin America, civilian ownership of military calibers like .223 or 5.56 NATO was strictly prohibited. To get around these international laws, Ruger simply chambered the rifle in a cartridge that was ballistically similar, but legally distinct. These rifles are mechanical ghosts. Ruger never released production figures, and most American shooters have no idea they even exist. They are identical in action and form to the standard Mini, yet they represent a fascinating era of global firearms regulation. Then there is the saga of the Mini-30. In 1987, seeing the flood of cheap 7.62 by 39mm surplus ammo entering the US, Ruger made a bold move. They took the Mini-14 action and beefed it up for the Soviet cartridge. On paper, a .30 caliber ranch rifle that could drop hogs and deer with cheap ammo was a winner. I've spent a lot of time with the Mini-30 in the brush, and when it works, it's a powerhouse. However, Ruger's lack of infrastructure for this model was its Achilles heel. Factory magazines were notoriously expensive and hard to find, and early firing pin profiles struggled with the hard burden primers found in Russian steel-cased ammo like Wolf or Tula. While Ruger eventually corrected these issues in later series, the Mini-30 remains a cult classic, rather than a mainstream hit. A brilliant idea that Ruger never quite gave the 100% support it deserved. Contrary to its ranch reputation, the Mini-14 has seen plenty of uniform duty. The GB, or government barrel model, was a staple in police cruisers for decades, featuring a threaded muzzle, bayonet lug, and flash hider. The GB model was Ruger's silent contender in the tactical market. For over 30 years, the Royal Bermuda Regiment issued the Mini-14 GB as its primary service rifle. It saw use in French prison towers and was a favorite for DOE security contractors guarding nuclear sites during the tail end of the Cold War. There was even the AC-556, the full-auto, select-fire version that offered a 3-round burst and a folding stock. It was Ruger's direct answer to the M16, and while it didn't replace the Colt in the military, it found a home with specialized SWAT teams across the country. We also have to acknowledge the dark legacy of the Mini-14. This is the history Ruger would prefer to keep in the shadows. Because of its reliability and accessibility, the Mini-14 has been at the center of some of the most significant tactical shifts in law enforcement history. The 1986 FBI Miami shootout is the prime example. 2 suspects armed with a Mini-14 were able to suppress and outgun a team of FBI agents who were primarily armed with revolvers and shotguns. The sheer volume of fire and the reliability of that Mini-14 changed police doctrine forever, leading to the near-universal adoption of semi-automatic pistols and patrol rifles in law enforcement. It proved that the Mini-14 wasn't just a plinker, it was a serious fighting tool. Now, let's talk about the quiet fix that finally made the Mini-14 a precision contender. For years, Mini-14 accuracy was an oxymoron. If you could hit a soda can at 50 yards, you were doing okay. But around 2003, Ruger revamped their entire production line. They introduced the 580 series, which brought in heavier, tapered barrels and much tighter machining tolerances. They shortened the gas port to reduce the violence of the action, and improved the bedding of the receiver. I've tested these newer models against the old ones, and the difference is night and day. A modern Mini-14 with good factory ammo can easily hold a 2 MOA group, making it more than capable for varmint hunting or target work. Ruger didn't run a single ad campaign about this. They just quietly made a better gun. So, why does the Mini-14 still sell in 2025 when you can buy a budget AR-15 for half the price? It's because the Mini-14 is a gray man rifle. In many parts of the country, a black rifle with rails and optics draws unwanted attention. The Mini-14, in stainless steel and hardwood, flies under the radar. It's the rifle you can keep in your truck or on your tractor without making a political statement. It doesn't need a dozen accessories, it just needs a magazine and a target. It's built of steel and wood, it smells like tradition, and it runs when it's dirty, frozen, or neglected. At the end of the day, the Mini-14 isn't just a rifle, it's a legacy of Bill Ruger's vision for the American shooter. It survived controversy, mechanical growing pains, and a changing market to remain one of the most iconic silhouettes in the world. Thanks for hanging out with me today on Gun 45. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to leave a comment. I want to hear your Mini-14 stories. Do you prefer the classic wood or the tactical folders? Let's talk about it. Until next time, stay sharp, stay safe, and remember, it's not just about the shot, it's about mastering the machine. This is Tony, signing off. Lock and load.